everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Spouse Angle. We are rolling out a new feature series on season 2 where once a month we'll be featuring a military spouse or military family member. And I have a really amazing military family to introduce to you guys today. I am joined virtually by Lieutenant Colonel June S. Copeland and her daughters, Second Lieutenant June A. Copeland, and twins Jalen and Jasmine Haynes, who are currently cadets at West Point. Both mom and older sister also went to West Point, so there's definitely a family legacy of military service that I want to get into today. So welcome to the show, everyone. I'm so excited to meet and talk to you guys today.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for having us.
Great to be.
Yeah, of course. Well, can I have you guys do a brief introduction, tell listeners who you are so they can kind of get familiar with your voices and also just a little bit more about your military journey so far?
Who wants to start?
Why don't you go first, Mom?
I'll start. So my name is Lieutenant Colonel June Copeland. I am currently DA, Department of the Army Select for Colonel, so I'll be a colonel within a couple of days, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long journey. Many years ago, I started out as a private. So to actually be able to wear the rank of colonel is going to be a pretty big deal for me and my family. Um, I am currently active duty. I work in Arlington. I, I I have 3 daughters. They're my life. They, as you already mentioned, my oldest, she graduated from West Point. She's currently at Fort Lee. And my 2 twins, Jalen and Jasmine, they currently are juniors at West Point. So very proud of my daughters, not just because they're West Point affiliated, but because they're just phenomenal people. So.
Yeah, we got lucky and got you all together in one room for this. So I'm happy about that. Go ahead, June.
I'm June Copeland as well. I'm a second lieutenant in the Army. I graduated West Point class of 2020, and I am currently doing basic officer leadership course, BOLIC, at Fort Lee, Virginia. Weirdly enough, I also started out as a private. I went training in 2015, and it's pretty incredible seeing the journey from E2 Private Haynes to Second Lieutenant Copeland now. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'm Jasmine. I didn't start out as a private, but I'm a cadet at West Point right now, and I'm the youngest. We're twins, but they make sure I know I'm the youngest.
By how much?
2 minutes.
I love it.
I'm Jalen. I'm the second twin, the oldest twin. I'm also a cadet at the United States Military Academy. Both of us are in the same year.
Great. And you guys will graduate in one next year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, 2022.
2022. That's awesome. That's close.
Very.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel, let's start with you. Why did you decide to join the military? How did you end up at West Point and kind of starting this family legacy? Did you have a family history of military service?
Not much of a history. My dad spent a couple of years in the Navy, and there were a couple of people in the military, not family members that I spent a lot of time with, but there were a couple of family members. My uncle was in the Air Force for a career, but we didn't spend a lot of time with him. He was always moving around. And so, believe it or not, I'm a twin. So I have a twin brother, and he, after high school, wanted to join the military. He was dead set on being in the military. But because we were twins, we had never been separated in our lives. And so he came to me. I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom. I remember it like it was yesterday. And he stopped me and he said, "Hey, I got a question for you. Would you consider joining the military with me?" He said, "We'll do 3 to 4 years and it'll be over." High school went by like that. This military 3 or 4 year commitment will go by like that. What do you say? And I went to my mom and I said, Jerry wants me to join the military and I don't really know if that's for me. And she said, "Well, it's a good life. It'll give you structure. It'll give you discipline. They'll take care of you. So I believe it's a good path for you to take." And so the rest is history. He and I both signed up for the Army. I was a medic. I spent 3 years in the Army as a medic. And one day my mom just got fed up with me not going to college, not doing things. And she literally grabbed me by the collar and said, I don't care what you do. When you go back to your duty station, I want you to get in somebody's college. I had already gotten accepted to West Point years before that, but I let the time run out on the clock because I was in Germany and I was stationed in Germany. They sell beer at McDonald's. I was having a great time partying and I just didn't want the structure of West Point. And so after 3 years, I decided, well, I got accepted once, maybe I'll get accepted again. And so I signed up for West Point and the journey began.
Wow, that's an amazing story. So, what have you been doing in the military since? So, you started as a medic. What's kind of your main job now?
So now I'm what they call an adjutant general officer. And so that's a person who works on human resources. So I do anything from everything human resources related. I promote, move, pay, everything. My latest project I've done command. I've been the assistant to the assistant secretary of the army. I've done everything from company level to Department of the Army level. And I had a job at the Secretary of Defense's office as well. And it's just been an amazing journey. I've been all over the world, literally. I've deployed twice, once in a combat zone, the other, we were oversight. I was a Division G1 in an infantry division, and we had oversight of thousands of soldiers in 11 different countries. I've had an extensive and exciting military career. To me, I never thought that day in the bathroom brushing my teeth, my life would ever turn out the way it's turned out. But it's been an exciting journey. It really, really has. I can't say it hasn't. But my latest project was what's called the Integrated Pay and Personnel System, Army. It's called IPSE, and it's the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army's latest modernization effort to bring all three components of the military under one personnel system. So that's what I'm doing right now. Well, actually, I'm about to transition into yet another job, but I just finished a 2.5 year stint with that, and so that's what I do. I love what I do, Natalie. I love what I do, but soon I have to pass the baton and the torch on to the young ladies here, and I feel that our nation is going to be in good, capable hands.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was it ever your goal that your children would grow up and join the military or go to West Point or anything? Is that something you kind of pushed, not pushed on them, but was something that you kind of talked to them about and were envisioning for them?
So we're pretty. Actually, the short answer to that is absolutely not. The more interesting answer is that um, my mom always thought them, as I told you, my mom always thought the military would be a a good family type, a pseudo family for me to take care of me, to look after me. And so I shared that same thought process with the girls. As we became a family unit, as they came into my life, uh, I actually shared with them my growth, my journey. I told them funny stories. And this is the one that from the time she was 4 years old, she was like, those stories are great. That's what I want to do. This one said, are you serious? So you and all of your friends are crazy. June on the end, she always decided she always said that she would go to the University of Miami. And I was helping her with her journey, but her journey was hers. And somewhere in and around 10th grade, she looked at me and said, you know something, mommy? I think I want to go to West Point. And for the first time, I contemplated someone other than Jasmine going to West Point, my alma mater. And it just surprised me. It really did surprise me. And so we worked on a plan. She executed the plan flawlessly. She just graduated this past summer, and Jasmine decided. Of course, Jasmine's been working on or was working on her appointment to West Point since she was in the 8th grade. I mean, literally putting forth weekends and days and interviewing people, and drawing this out on this dry erase in her room. That was her. And then Jalen, somewhere around 11th grade, said, "Hey, I'll sign up for the place, but I don't know if that's really what I want to do with my life. But I'll at least sign up for it to see if I can actually do what it takes, because it's an arduous process, about a year and a half process where you've got to go through physical tests, written tests, SATs, all types of things just to get in. And she actually made it in. She actually made it in. So again, the short answer was no. I had no clue that all three of my daughters would actually become members of the Long Gray Line. But now that they are, I cannot explain to you how emotional that is for me. There's a sense of pride, there's a sense of love, immense respect, sisterhood that actually goes on just because we all have a shared experience other than our being in the same family. I've got to stop being long-winded, Natalie. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're totally fine. So girls, I'll ask you, or sorry, young women, I will ask you. So June, go ahead and tell me like when you knew that you were going to follow in your mom's footsteps. What was that decision like for you? When did you change from University of Miami to West Point? And
It was about 10th grade. Towards the end, like halfway, it was like halfway between the end and halfway point of 10th grade. I had sat with my mom because she was talking about how 10th grade is the time you need to start applying for schools and like applying for scholarships and everything. And we worked through basically everything that would entail going to the University of Miami, like tuition, food, boarding, books, like how the schedule would be set up and everything. And I was looking at it, and first of all, it just didn't click. I guess is the best way to explain it. Like it wasn't like I can't wait to get started doing this. And so then the more I thought about it, it was more so gratitude, I guess, towards the army. I was thinking back on it, and I was analyzing how much the army had done for my mom and like how much the army had done for us because we grew up army brats for our entire lives. And
great. Me
I
too.
wasn't oh yes. But I didn't really know how to operate outside of the military, or how I was supposed to do certain things without um the guidance that the military provided for my family. And so that it was that coupled with the fact that I wanted to, I guess, give back to the institution that had given so much to me and my family. So that's when I realized I wanted to do the army. And once I decided to do the army, then West Point was the only logical option for me. I
Mhm.
ended up applying to the Naval Academy, and that
Ooh.
was I tried because I was like, you should apply to all the colleges, but that didn't end very well. I couldn't get past the but yeah, so it was a pretty straightforward journey after she helped me walk through um my actual decision making process for why I wanted to go to the University of Miami. And then also West Point did the same. Everything that I wanted to do at the University of Miami I could also do at West Point, but also set myself up for more success in the future.
Mhm.
So that's why I did it.
Jasmine and Jalen, was it similar with you where you knew you wanted to join the army and this seemed like the logical path?
Well, for me personally, like she had said, I wanted to join from a very, very young age, from about 5. Um, she had taken me into work with her one day, and I saw exactly what she was doing. She was talking about how much she loved what she does. I came into work with her, and I'm looking around like, I love what you do too. Like, I want to do. And so she would tell us stories about her college experience. And I knew that it was a leadership academy to create officers, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the military at that point in time. And I was like, well, why not just follow in her footsteps? She's a great, amazing woman. And I just wanted to be, they call me her carbon copy just because we look a bit similar, but I mean that's what I
Not
wanted
at
to
all.
do. And so from that point on, when I had known from that age that I wanted to, everything from then forward was just focused on getting into West Point. Like I had a board and I wrote like these are my goals. I would interview first captains, which are like the top cadet at the academy at the time, EJ
Mhm.
Coleman, Simone Askew. I would ask them like, hey, you guys are doing so great. Like, what should I do? And it was a bit obsessive, but I like to call it determination. Determined. I was determined to, you know, get there. She would bring me to her reunions. That was a big factor as well. Going to reunions and seeing like the relationship she had with her classmates. I just thought that was a great bond that I wanted to have too. So we made it, and we have 3 more semesters. So I'm really excited to finish it up.
Yeah, that's incredible. Jalen, what about you?
Well, I never really thought about joining the army. Like as my mom said earlier, it was never like something that I immediately thought about. But during high school, me and Jasmine are really close, and also we have a very competitive relationship. And so when Jasmine was applying to West Point, I just think we remember like a couple of times we had comments like, "You can never get into West Point," something like that. After that, I was just like, "Well, I'm going to get into West Point," and so I became very dedicated to like at least getting an acceptance letter from the school. And so when I finally got it, it was like I didn't make a decision about going to West Point and joining the army until like a week before like the deadline. And so so I was choosing between West Point and the school NYU. And one of the pros of going to West Point was that my family was there, like Jasmine was there, June was there. And also like when I really thought about it, just West Point had aligned a lot of its like morals and values with what I believed in, aligned with what West Point also believed in. And like you can go to like any other type of normal school, but it's really hard to go to a school that like makes it a mission statement to like support having good character and like becoming a leader. And so after that, I was really decided that West Point was probably the best place for me.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And
I love that story.
they're twins. They're twins that are 2 minutes apart. But as you can see, even by sight, they're not polar opposites. Their core is the same, but they're so different. Within minutes of getting her acceptance letter in the mail, Jasmine was at the computer and logged in, hitting the accept button. It took Jalen months to do the same. She got the letter and she waited until about an hour before the suspense date. And then she clicked it and said, "No fanfare. I'm going upstairs to bed." And that was it. That was it.
I was tired.
I still have the video of Jasmine jumping up and down with tears streaming down her face. And so it's one difference to another. But the beautiful part was when I would go up to visit them, um, they had each other. That for me as a mom, I knew of the hardships of West Point. I knew how hard it could be at the academy, but the bond that they had with each other, that was very important to me. And I remember one day I was tearing up and they looked at me and they said, "Well, why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to miss you guys." And June patted me on the shoulder and she said, "Mommy, you're the only one that's not here."
Fair.
So, so they spent some very formative, tough years together. And so I really am grateful and blessed for that. So,
Yeah. Well, this episode is coming during Black History Month, which is something Lieutenant Colonel you and I had discussed, and we thought it was timely, and I'm really excited to get to highlight all of your stories. And June, you were part of the class of 2020 at West Point, which had a record high number of Black female cadets graduate. And so I think I read among the 1,017 graduates, there were 38 Black women, including you, according to some news reports. So what was it like to be part of that class? Did you know that you were making history?
Honestly, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. West Point is a very challenging school. So most of my focus was just on like hitting those challenges and overcoming those challenges. And I was just dead set on graduating. I honestly didn't even realize we were the biggest class to graduate until after we'd already commissioned. And then people started that the articles started circulating, and then my classmates we have a group chat in group me, and they had just put the article in the group me, and I was like, oh man, I I wasn't aware of this. But me, all of my classmates, all 38 of 37 of my other Black female graduates, we're very humbled by the experience and like really appreciative of the fact that we were given the opportunity to be that role model, I guess, for other Black females. But for us, it's all of us. It's a surreal experience where we didn't expect to be in the position that we were in. And a lot of us so far have been using the platform of being the biggest class of West Point graduates, Black female West Point graduates, and they've been trying to spearhead changes at the academy and bring light to issues that they're facing as Black female officers, just things like that. And I think that it's we're really grateful to have had the opportunity to be in this position in the first place. And like I said, all of us, we still have a group chat. We still talking. And we're just all really grateful, really grateful to have graduated, but then like also really grateful for each other. I have a lot of friends. All of us pretty much. We're all a support system within the greater support system of West Point. So it's very humbling and very surreal, and I'm very appreciative for the position that God's put me in.
Mom, how does that compare to when you were there and you graduated? Do you remember how many Black women were in your class?
12.
12.
12.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, the experience is quite different. I remember clearly West Point is what they call a significant emotional event, and some of it was quite traumatizing. To come out of the army, where it's a big melting pot, if you will, of people, to go to the military academy where it's predominantly male, predominantly white male, was a culture shock for me. And some of those, I met some amazing people of all walks of life, of all persuasions, of all genders, amazing people. So there was never I never got along with this particular type of person. But there were some events that happened to me during my time at West Point that were traumatic that I dreaded my daughters going through.
Mm.
Um, there were 12 Black females, and when you have 1,200 people in your class, and there are only 12 people that look like you, and maybe eight in the class ahead of you, and total in 4,000 plus cadets, you may have 50 Black females spread throughout the Corps. You feel outnumbered. You feel fearful. You feel that no one understands you. And when you see that one face that looks similar to yours across the area, when you're sprinting trying to get to class, you almost tear up. Not sometimes, every time, and you create a bond that's lifelong. Um, I did not want that for. I didn't want that part of it. I wanted the experiences that my daughter talked about, the friends, again from all walks of life that I have, and that I will always have. Mark DeRocky, Jeff Van Antwerp, Alex Moore, Lewis Burtz, Liz Wolfe, Yolanda McCrae. These are names of people from, again, all persuasions that I literally, literally love these people. Um, but they weren't the ones that gave me the rough experience. They gave me the embrace, the love, the confidence that yeah, you can make it through this. But for my daughters, I dreaded that. I dreaded those experiences that were traumatic to me. And it mattered when they sent me pictures of them and their classmates, and they sent me pictures of themselves and their friends. Or that when West Point brought us there for that initial day and they gave us the stats on this is who we accepted, 231 valedictorians, um, 30% female, 20% Black. And the minority count was more than it would ever was. There was one Hispanic female in our class, Vanessa Mendoza. No, two. Um, and to see those numbers change over time, it's not a it's not a racial thing, like we should be divided because we're divided into races, because some people look at it that way. But when I look at it as the tough experience that it is, when you go through it, it matters that you have someone that looks like you that goes through it. It matters that someone knows that, my hair is harder to braid and harder to wash and harder to do. And we're having the same struggles. And my daughter Jasmine, she even braids some of her female classmates' hair because, again, we've all got to get through this together. So through many of their experiences, their discussions, some of the clubs that West Point has now, the numbers, the diversity, the fact that they're allowed to wear their hair in braids. I couldn't when I was there. These are some of the changes that were made to make their experience better than mine. And a lot of times, I envy, I love it. But and not I don't envy it. When it's your child, you want the best for your child. And so some of the changes that have been made that incorporate diversity into it, that makes my daughters, as they look the way they look, that make them feel like they're a part of the West Point family, the long gray line. It makes them feel like they're included. I love the fact that West Point has made some of those changes in order to make them feel, in order to give them a much different experience than I had when I was there. And again, I can't say that West Point made me feel like an outsider, but at that time, the school had not developed certain things to include everyone in as well as they could. But I had a good time. There were some things I did on my own. For example, I was uh, in the Century Club, which is the 100 hours on the area makes you a Century person, and I spent over 200 hours on the area, so I was in trouble a lot. So my own experience made it tough on me, but being in an environment where it was just me and so many others that weren't like me, was a bit more difficult, and they had a better experience than I did. And as a mother, that made me feel a lot better. Again, you can stop calling me Natalie because I had these long-winded answers.
You're totally fine. Well, West Point has recently come under fire
Yes.
for, I think the Washington Post called it entrenched racism, that minority cadets have had to endure. And the school, as well as the Army and the military overall, and the country, we're seeing is going through this period of racial reckoning. Last summer, we saw the Army scrap photos for officer selection boards to kind of
Yes.
root out possibility of racial biases in that process, for example. So, what has it been like for you as Black women, as service members, to watch these conversations and these changes really take place?
Okay.
um, I've experienced a lot of issues, a lot of EO issues at West Point and in my company specifically, so much so that, I requested to change out of the company because it was affecting me mentally, physically, academically, like, but it was these conversations that we began having. I remember a video call with my company where it was just specifically talking about, hey, these issues, these racial issues. And it was those conversations where they acknowledged their faults and communicated that, hey, we want to do better. That made me feel like, there's potential, and made me actually decide to stay in my company and, help teach and help just be there for other women and other Black women in my company specifically. And these conversations are very hard. I remember because they're mandated, we have these certain periods of times where you have to go talk. And I remember my squad leader, she was a Black female, and I look at her and I'm like, I really don't want to go to this conversation. I really don't want to have this talk today because they are hard. They are really hard. But it's helpful to have people there, like those bonds she was discussing earlier. We were talking about earlier. It's helpful to have those bonds because she held my hand and she said, "We can do it. You can talk about it."
I remember when um, Jasmine started out in her as a plebe, and she had her group of classmates, and a few things happened to her where it was like she was separated out of the group and treated a certain kind of way, and she felt so alone. And so after the George Floyd incident happened this year and the conversation started, her classmates got on a group video conference call, and they started talking. And I was walking by her because they were in COVID, so they were home. They were doing teleschooling, and and she was in tears. And I asked her, what's going on? And she said, we're having this conversation, and I believe she was dead set on leaving the company. And she said, I believe that the conversation is turning in such a way that my company actually wants to make some positive changes, and I can't leave them now. I have to be a part of the solution. And so she decided to stay on in the company and work towards a better environment for. And this is, it's Black females are one thing, but as females, period, we have certain challenges that our male counterparts don't have. And so our Black female experience actually speaks to the white female experience. It can actually speak to the Hispanic female experience. It can actually speak to any minority group that's going through that may not feel as accepted as everyone else for whatever reason. And I'm proud of her because she went through it like a champ, and she came out on top. Um, and she's a part of the solution. She's not bitter. She's not angry. She still loves her academy, and she is willing to be a part of the solutions to actually bring about change. And so, I hate that that got a little tough for you there, but it's
No.
but
That takes
you don't have
incredible
to
strength.
apologize.
So thank
You
you
don't
for
have to
persisting.
apologize.
Oh, can I go off of what you said?
Yeah, you're
Oh,
happy.
for sure.
Oh yeah, so I think there's two flip sides to this conversation. I think the first one is very positive, and the first even having these conversations is obviously having an impact. Like I've always been comfortable with my company. I didn't have the same experience as Jasmine. I've always
Right.
loved my company, but I could tell the difference between before the summer and after the summer. The conversations we had about race is just more open and interesting. Like people are genuinely talking, and it's not the same type of talking where I make a point and someone else makes a point and nothing's discussed. It's like they're genuinely interested in learning. And so before that, these type of issues that deal with racism and systemic racism specifically were always discussed in the shadows. And now it's just refreshing to be able to have these open conversations. And I think that's very important to be getting these issues in the light. And the key to having these productive and effective conversations is really just listening and discourse. It's very important that when everyone in the group is all actually voicing their opinions and their thoughts and we're all having a conversation, we can get really, really far when coming up with a solution.
I love what you're saying,
Hmm.
Jane.
Good
And,
point.
and basically what she's saying. So my next job, if I'm so blessed to get it, I actually did an interview and did pretty well with the interview. But my next job, so after the George Floyd incident, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Army literally said, "We've got to do something about this. There's something going on. We've got to do something about it." And initially, we were in such a state of shock as a nation. I mean, we were in the midst of COVID and the most impactful event or circumstance, the pandemic that was affecting the entire planet. Our country got subsumed by this racial issue, dealing with racial, systemic racism, things like that. So the Army's answer to it was this thing called Project Inclusion. And again, if I'm so blessed, my next job may be as a part of that committee because I would love to be able to be a part of making real change and having those conversations all across the military and actually implementing policies to actually do something about some of the things that have been going on. Again, I've loved my journey in the military, but there's some things that need to be adjusted, some things that need to be changed, and that's just not germane to the Army. That's our country as a whole. So I'm not speaking out of turn when I mention that. It's just that that's just how it is.
Absolutely.
Just where I fall on the topic, I'm very grateful that she has the opportunity to be in this committee that she just applied for, because while I do think that it is very important, I'm very grateful that people are having these conversations, that they're willing to open their perspective to see how other people are treated and how other people's experiences go. I think that the solutions that they're attempting to come up with, I feel as if minorities need to be included in that discussion, and they need to be included in the policy making process. Like I said earlier, my classmates were attempting to highlight some of the issues that they had with the academy. My experience kind of fell in between the twins. I had some issues with the company, but I talked to the person that I had the issue with, and we worked it out. Like it wasn't like malicious intent, but it was just basically ignorance, and so we had that conversation, and it's good. But I think that right now at the academy, the decision making process is there are not Black females involved in the decision making process and like how policies are implemented and how policies are come up with and determined. And I think that that's kind of also an issue with the Army writ large, where people are trying to make policies that they think are including um, Black women, or like women, like minorities. I think that it's including minorities, but they don't actually understand everything that we're going through or everything that we're doing to make the policies actually tailored towards um, inclusion. So they're not purposefully trying to do wrong, but the fact that we don't have voices in these decision making areas, I feel is contributing to the issue of why we see these policies, like why we had the policy where my mom couldn't wear braids when she was at West Point. Well, it's very clearly a manageable style for us to be able to have braids, to just put it up in a bun and not have to get up every morning like 30 minutes early just to get our hair into the Army's standards. But so I'm grateful that she has the opportunity to have a voice for Black females. Like I guess she's not like the voice for all Black females, but like to be able to communicate our issues and like what we see is wrong with the system, so that higher up is actually able to fully understand it and then fully process how to best fix the issue, how to best mitigate the issue, so that everybody feels included and everybody has the opportunity to, I mean, be the best that they can for the Army.
And I think June coined the phrase. She said included, and so this is not about, because I know some sergeant major somewhere will say, well, the Army is one. We have to have one Army, one standard, and that's the truth. We can't be an Army with 50 different policies for 50 different groups. However, what you want is for that all of your groups are. We're talking inclusion. We want all of the groups to feel like they belong, like they're part of the family, because of who and what I am, I've had to develop, I'll say, some unorthodox leadership skills. I can't just go out there and blast everyone, because everyone's not going to deal. I can't lead the same way that my male counterparts lead. I have to lead with a certain, a different type of finesse, a different type of leadership art. And because I have to do it differently, I've learned over the years that the more you make people feel included, the harder they will work for you. And that's what you're really trying to do. Leadership is the art of actually making people get the mission accomplished in top form. And again, when everyone's included, you get the best of your organization. You can make your organization rise to heights you've never even experienced before, because everyone feels a part of the problem, feel a part of the solution. They feel a part of the family. And so that's really what this is all about. And West Point, to its credit, it's actually doing something. It realized that, as June said, some of the policies that were implemented had a different spin on it because of who was in charge or who was in positions of with the ability to add to policy. But um, what they realize is that they don't have a representation, and so now they're leading this campaign. I think it's their diversity leader that's there now is actually leading a campaign to actually hire more minorities in order to be those role models and to be the people that implement policy and to assist the academy with making sure it's all included. So again, you can't turn a ship the size of the Royal Caribbean on a dime. It takes time to turn it. And so what West Point is, like you just mentioned, that article that said they came under fire, they're under fire, and they are actually doing what Army officers do. They're actually trying to figure out the best way to get that inclusive environment that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on that issue. Any other last thoughts you'd like to leave for our listeners? This has been just such a great conversation.
I do want to say that I do love West Point. Like,
Yes.
it was everything to me. Like, I was that high schooler that when I went to school, if it didn't have West Point on it, like I wasn't wearing it. West Point this, West Point that. I was one of those cadets. So even though I have had really tough experiences at West Point, I'm so grateful that, we're positioned in the right direction. Um, and I'm excited to be a part of the Long Gray Line, and especially with my family.
No,
Yeah, it's still so cool that you all have experiences there and share that in common. I think that's so great.
I like to piggyback off of what Jasmine said. I'm also really grateful to the Academy and like all the opportunities that it's given to me. And I'm very excited to see the positive changes. Like my mom was talking about, they're trying to hire more diverse staff, and I mean, it may come across as like a minor thing, but I distinctly remember my senior year before COVID hit, the semester before COVID hit. I was going to one of my sociology classes, and I walked by the classroom, and there was a black female lieutenant colonel in a different classroom, and I just stopped and I just stood outside the door, and I felt like a creepy person because like she was writing her lesson plan on the board, and I was just sitting there looking at her, and I got really teary eyed because I was just like, that was the first black female of like that rank in like it was a beautiful thing to see. And so I was just sitting there just watching her, and then she turned and she looked at me and she was like, "Can I help you? Can I?" And I was like, "No, ma'am. I just want to say thank you for being here." And she was like, "Yeah, it's no problem. I'm glad that we're getting more representation at the academy." And I just went to class, but like that stuck with me for like the rest of the day. And I went to talk to my roommate. Well, she wasn't my roommate at the time. My best friend Ava. I went to go talk to her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, that's a big step in the right direction." So it's a really motivational, like spirit lifter, where you can, because West Point talks about how the staff they bring back are the best of the best. So it's great to see that like a black female that they brought back is the best of the best. It's like something that we can look at and be like, this is where I can be if I stay the course, you know? So it's just I'm very grateful to see that the academy is listening to the things that cadets have to say and listening to our experiences and then trying to course correct is the best way of saying it. So I'm really grateful for that too. But like I said, I am also grateful for the academy and everything that they've done for me as well and my family.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you guys so much for coming on the spouse angle. It was lovely to speak to you all and see your faces. I know, Mom, you and I have been corresponding for a while about this, so
Yeah.
I'm excited that it finally worked out.
Well, thank you again for having us. This has been a great experience. We live with ourselves, so we don't we initially didn't realize that our situation was one unique and two special. And so anytime anyone expresses any interest in our family and the journey that we've been on, it's humbling. It's very humbling. And of course we love to share our lives with you and your audience. And we're just very grateful and blessed that you decided to express interest in our lives and have us a part of your listening family. So thank you so much.
Of course.